Hello, and welcome to the Survival of the Artist podcast. My name is Justin Sarachik, and you might know me from a number of places. I've been a journalist since 2011, 2012. Some of you might know me from Broken Records magazine, the print magazine that I ran on Staten Island. Some of you might know me from the Christian Post or Breathecast, where I was an editor. And my hunch, a lot of you would know me from Rapzilla.com, the number one source of all Christian hip hop. Oh, and some of you might know me from my band, Process of Fusion, that I've been in since 2008. But regardless, music and writing has been something that's been a part of my entire life. I've been making music since 2002, whether as a drummer in a band, a vocalist for my band, a rapper, just writing music with people. I've been involved, and I just love music, and I cover music, and my library of CDs and my wall of CDs next to me. Yes, CDs. I have them. I got some cassettes in there too. There's a lot of crazy things going. Hip hop, rock, some jazz, pop music. Really weird stuff that I'm not gonna tell you about. But anyway, I know I like to tweet artist tips on Twitter, which is you can follow me at jsarachik_POF. And it got me thinking, a lot of people like the tweets, they share the tweets, they want to know more about perspectives of music and learning about music. And I feel like I have a bit of a platform and a bit of a knowledge in terms of just being around the industry and being around influencers and having some of my own experiences as well. Successes with many failures, as a lot of us will have. So I came up with Survival of the Artist podcast thanks to a social media vote. And basically, I'm going to have content creators of all kinds, mostly musicians, I would say, but I'd love to get videographers, YouTubers, really anybody who's doing something in an artistic space that's trying to survive in 2018, which is, for music, is totally different than even 5-10 years ago. Totally different space. So the goal is every single week, or whenever I put this out, this is the pilot. I want to have an artist who comes on and shares their experience surviving as an artist, what they do, what they've done, some of their failures, some of their successes, their ways of making money inside music and outside of music, what they have coming and going. I know most of these artists do interviews and they talk about what they're currently working on or where they're going, but I want to save that for those other places. We'll talk about that a little bit, but my main focus is you as an artist. What makes you tick? How are you surviving? What sort of impact can you leave on other people? So today's first guest is, I'd say he's a friend of mine. We'll ask him if he'd consider us friends. His name is Mogli the Iceburg. He is part of the Indie Tribe Collective with No Big Deal, Jerry Mana, and What Up RG. Mowgli is super creative. We actually have a lot in common. He's got a rock background and does hip hop, much like myself. He plays instruments. He likes heavy music. He loves hip hop. He is a genius when it comes to streaming and marketing and that sort of thing. And he's got an album coming out. And I'm not going to tell you what it is. I'll let him tell you about it. But I've heard it. I've had it for over a month already, and he always impresses me. Tumultu, his last album that came out in 2017, was definitely one of my favorites of the year. And without further ado, here is Mowgli the Iceburg. Okay, so we are here with Mowgli the Iceburg. He is on the phone right now. He's here. Say hi.
Yeah, I'm here. This is how you can tell it's not scripted. Here I am.
This is unscripted. This is
And I was about to say in the flesh, but that wouldn't actually be correct.
not in the flesh. We've never met.
Right, not once.
And in the intro, I said that that we're kind of friends, but I said that I would leave it up to you to see if we're actually friends or not, or just internet acquaintances.
We're internet friends.
Okay, we could be internet friends. We do talk a lot on
This is true
on various platforms, except
because
MySpace.
otherwise it would just be like Facebook friends or like Twitter friends or so. But we have the whole internet like expansion.
Yeah, we
Of,
do emails and we even do texting, so that takes it out of the realm of the internet. And now we're on the phone. But this is only the second time we're on the phone. But
it's true.
it's okay. This really isn't important. This is just me figuring out how to do this show on the fly with you. Mogli the
Yep.
Iceburg, my internet friend. So
I'm with it.
so so first I gave a little intro, but tell the good people, my audience, who are you? What do you do? And what would be your claim to fame, I guess?
Okay, so I am a rapper and producer, and I guess you could say entrepreneur across those respects. I'm part of a collective called Indie Tribe, along with No Big Dill, Jerry Mena, and What Up RG, not to be confused with What Up Erg.
That's
Um,
what I used to think.
yeah, his name is RG. But so yeah, I mean, like, I think that I'm pretty well known in the sphere of uh, Christian hip hop, and also kind of have started to get a little bit of clout with just some general thoughts on practices as far as like navigating it music business as an independent artist, and that's something I'm very passionate about.
Right. I know. I see you guys in Indie Tribe always posting clout on each other's stuff. So you you guys are definitely getting clout, and for what you just said, it's why I definitely wanted you to be the first person on this podcast. I mean, survival of the artist. How do you survive as an artist? And you seem to always have thoughts and things to say on that. I frequently do my hashtag artist tips and try to help artists, whether submitting music or just trying to be a little more professional. And you go more, I feel like, on the marketing end and streaming and revenue.
Yeah,
So I feel like we can have some good conversations here. um, but before we really dig into that, and I guess this is all part of it, I mean, you've been doing music for a while. So how long did
yeah,
it take you to get to where you're at now, where you feel like, I know maybe in your mind yet you haven't reached the ultimate goal that you're trying to get to, but you're in a pretty good spot now. So how long did
yeah,
it take you
yeah.
to get there?
So, and just for like context, right now, actually, I have 4 days left at my current job, where like I have a paycheck and a salary and stuff like that, and um, 4 days left of that, and then I'm just working for myself and doing music and other creative endeavors full time. Um,
Hold
so
up.
to get,
Clap, clap, clap. I need a clap button.
appreciate it.
Very nice, man.
Yeah, you need the like the sitcom applause button, like the Jimmy Fallon applause.
Yeah, there might be too much laughter though. This is nothing funny. This is serious. This is exciting.
Yeah, yeah.
I
So
could do my fake Jimmy Fallon excitement for you though.
there,
Wow!
like
Oh my God, that's
his,
great. But
his
go
like
ahead.
face that like kind of has half emotion but never really commits to anything. Anyway, so yeah, I've been making music for um over 10 years at this point. And I don't know, it kind of feels like it went through different phases because like I think that there was a long period that was me just like figuring out how to actually make music, and because I like taught myself how to do everything from recording to
Hmm.
producing and writing and marketing and all that stuff. So I feel like I had a solid like 6 or 7 years of trial and error just to kind of even get to the point where I could like make something that was worth listening to. Um, and then like I think that when I put out my Dreamcatcher album, which
Hmm.
is like the first album that most people know by me, but is actually like altogether probably like my sixth or seventh full length recorded project.
Right.
Um, that's when I really started to see like the needle substantially move and start to get some real traction and stuff.
Yeah, and I think that's a common misconception by people too, that they think, every artist album or band's album is their first album. Um,
Yeah,
but and they're like, wow, you're the new artist of the year, and meanwhile you're like, new artist. I've been figuring this out for 5 years. This is the first thing I actually want you to hear, or I'm proud of letting you hear. There's there's some other stuff out there, and I know for most artists, it's stuff that they don't even want to talk about. Some
yeah. I mean,
some people are different.
I've gone through lengths. I mean, there's a period where like I think everything for me, everything that's up now, I'm gonna keep up for like ever because I like the idea of people seeing like how far I've come and like grow and stuff like
Right,
that.
right.
Even though that there's music that's up right now that I'm not like super proud of. Like I get it for where I was at when I put it out and stuff, but it's like I wouldn't want somebody to listen to that on their first impression of me or anything. Um, but like so I like leaving that stuff up there just so people can see the progression and be inspired by that. But like I said, I mean there's like 5 or 6 or 7 full length projects before that like I go to pretty solid extent to make sure nobody ever posts on the internet.
That's like, and I know you're a big Linkin Park fan, like I
Yeah,
am. Specifically the older stuff, like most people. Um,
yeah.
I went through a period of time where I scoured the internet for every single demo and track and anything that they ever put out, even before they
Oh
were
yeah.
Linkin Park, when
And
they were called
and
Zero and Hybrid Theory. Even I have
yeah, so
songs of them even before Chester was there. And
yeah, and I think that when there's a level where you get big enough where there's just nothing you can do, you know.
right,
Um,
especially now, because we're talking about with Linkin Park, it was like 97, 98, 99, and
yeah,
how
like
how
somebody had
people
to
even
have like a
have that
physical
stuff.
cassette tape or something.
Yeah,
Yeah,
how people even had that stuff is crazy. Now, once you're on the internet, that's it. Someone's gonna have it, and it's there forever.
yeah. Um, so yeah, I mean, like it's. I think that in the most recent phase where I've actually had music that's I think is still like worth listening to. Um, it's taken me about 3 4 years to get from like a point of making that and not making any money at all to being able to basically support myself off of it.
That's dope, man. And I'm gonna get more into that in a second. But from where you're talking about, like where you came from and to where you are now, because you said, around 10 years you've been making music. So, what are some of the advantages of you as an artist right now, as opposed to even, 5 years ago when you were still, trying to figure things out?
I mean, I think that the biggest part about me now is that like I have a more kind of I have a better idea of what like it means to have a brand
Hmm.
and to kind of stick to that and let that kind of be the primary thing. Um, and I think that's something that especially with like people beginning like you don't realize that it's really not about the music. Like it's not it's like it's kind of about the music, but it's really more of
Hmm.
a brand and like an idea that people can buy into and identify with. And I think that's a huge thing that I have now that I never used to have.
So, what would you, if you could sort of elevator pitch your brand? What is your brand? How would you brand yourself, like in a sentence?
I would brand it as like a honest, emotional, and creative storytelling.
Um,
And honest, emotional, and creative introspection.
oh, nice. It's good you threw that introspection at the end. It makes you really seem like you were prepared for this answer. You didn't just make it up
Yes,
on the fly. You actually know what you're talking about. You have the brand idea in your head. That's a good lesson that you gave. You weren't on the spot.
right,
so
right.
So that's great. So moving on to, and I know is this your favorite topic on Twitter, and I already know
Okay.
you know what I'm going to ask, but it's actually I didn't even write it down in my notes as a
Wait,
question.
you were gonna talk to me about like cultural Marxism and nihilism and like
Yeah, yes, and I'm sure,
philosophical critiques of 21st century philosophers.
knowing you, you have thoughts on that too. I don't have many on it. So, All right, so it's not even I don't even have it written down as a question. This is what I have
Mhm.
written down verbatim. Let's talk
Okay.
about streaming. You're on
Okay.
another level. That's what I that's what I have. That's it.
Word. Um. So yeah, I mean, like, I think that people you're finding less and less people that are questioning the validity of streaming at this point. Um. Like, I don't know. There's still some people that are like, man, Spotify is stealing from artists or whatever. But I mean, like, I think there's just less and less people that are even thinking that way. The bigger
Mhm.
question is just like, how do I get started? How do I get going? And what are the benefits of one platform over another? Why do they pay different things? How do you promote on different things? What's the value of data? Uh, those are all, I think, kind of the more important questions right now. And it's like, I think I was kind of somebody that was on the early side, a little bit more vocally supportive of it than other people.
Right.
But since then, I mean, like, even in Christian hip hop, there's just been a huge amount of just growth across the board for the entire genre. And I mean, that's kind of just gone across the board for all music, but specifically within our little niche. Um, I mean, it used to be like, if somebody had like 100,000 plays on Spotify, that was like a big deal. But that's becoming more and more common, and it's not just because like artists are getting bigger, but it's just because like the audience is growing more in that niche.
Yeah, and I feel like artists and even the way people listen to music is adapting towards these things anyway. Like you really don't have another choice.
No, not really. Um, and like, yeah, I think that even recently, SoundCloud is becoming they're seeing a substantial drop in people listening on them and just their total numbers and everything. I mean, you don't really see people getting 100 million plays on SoundCloud, but that's like pretty common for like any popular song on Spotify.
Right.
And Apple Music is going to be like that soon too, at the rate that they're growing. Um, and I think that the big core thing that everybody just needs to realize is that um, the entire like art and everything they're all kind of fighting the same battle. Like, now, like, artists aren't just competing with artists; they're just kind of generally competing for attention, and that's something that like, you didn't have to think about as much before, like, because now you got to think of it in the sense of like you're competing with Netflix and you're competing with like BuzzFeed and you're competing with like just people like Boonk on Instagram, just like posting crazy, attention grabbing videos and stuff. Like, you're everybody's competing for like an audience's minute of their time every day.
Right.
Um, and that's all you need from like 400,000 people a month, and you can have a living. Um, So, I mean, there's an obvious kind of devaluation of music, I think, that is going on that's concerning, and I don't think anybody really has an idea of how to um, capitalize off things and also keep things of high value that's non-disposable.
Right. And you kind of alluded to not knowing the answer, but my next question was, how does an artist make money in today's industry? Like it's obviously not coming from music anymore unless you're streaming millions and millions. What other
Right.
ways do you survive? Like for instance, you're going full time really working for yourself now. So
Yeah.
so
So
assuming that's not all on music streams, I know you're doing other stuff. So how does an artist make money and survive basically?
right. So for me, I'm making about a third of what I need to live off for like all my bills and like
Hmm.
savings, and like I'm basically making a third of what I need off of like Spotify and Apple Music. Um, and I'm part of my plan is that I hope that that number can increase drastically with my efforts being full time
Right.
soon. Um, but the licensing is a decent side that a lot of people overlook.
Hmm.
Um, Davis Absolute. has actually helped me a lot with that
Right.
recently,
I know
and
he's great with that stuff. The
yeah,
placements.
and I just never really even used to consider that like somebody at my level could be making like over $10,000 a year on licensing, and now like that's all just a very real possibility, but you have to treat it like a job, you know.
Yeah.
Um, and the same thing goes with booking. I mean, and I don't want to get too personal with talking about people that I know and their finances, but there are several Christian hip hop artists that I'm very close with that are very comfortably in like the $20,000 a year off booking
Wow.
like situation, and it doesn't take an awful lot to get to a situation where you can command $1,000 a show and stay fairly booked with that.
Hmm.
Um, and obviously with the other things built in, that gives, depending on where you live, like I don't know how much it actually costs of living is where you're at up in New York, but it's a lot higher
It's yeah, it's
than it
it's
is.
not good. I trust me when I say that it's probably a lot more than what it cost you to live.
Yeah, no, I'm sure. And right now I'm living in Knoxville, Tennessee, and that's like one of the cheapest places in the nation. And I'm going to be moving to Nashville here in about a week, again, and it's going to be a pretty major cost of living increase for me, but it's nothing compared to LA or anywhere that's just expensive to begin with. So, and that's something that depending on where you live, that might be a feasibility to, some people just straight up can't pay their bills and rent off like $30,000 a year.
Hmm.
And if you have a family and stuff, that can be more difficult. But for me, that's definitely manageable. Um, and the other side of it to me is just using my creative output to monetize it for other people. So I'm kind of producing more for other people. I'm A&Ring some projects,
Nice.
and all that is just kind of secondary income on the side. And for me, I always have the ability to do like freelance video work and stuff on the side, and that's something that has kind of unlimited demand in Nashville, and I'm able to make $25 to $50 an hour doing it. So um, for me, it's like I honestly wouldn't be quitting my job if I didn't have other things totally non-related to music. I could also just kind of piecemeal together. Um, because in Nashville, I mean, even just driving Lyft, you can make like $25 an hour.
Yeah.
Uh, so and all between like the contract work and like Lyft and things like that, those are all scalable sources of income. And I can just kind of add as much or as little as I need to work on my own schedule and be free to go to other cities for extended periods of time or go and do shows or wherever. Um, so that's kind of the balance that's worked for me, and I'm hoping that by giving it the full time commitment this year, I'll be able to just pay for 100% of my living expenses with streaming. And but to do that, I'm gonna have to grow my streams by about 3 times, which I grew like 10 times this last year. So it shouldn't. I'm optimistic.
Yeah, you're on a good pace. And I think it's cool as, to what you were saying, a musician nowadays is sort of like a journalist where different jobs are becoming obsolete or very expensive to do. Like now a journalist he doesn't get a cameraman anymore. He doesn't get a
Yeah,
guy with a boom mic anymore. He doesn't get a writer, an editor, and a producer. It's just, it could be just a guy with an iPhone filming the video, doing the interview, editing it, and then writing it, you know?
totally.
And just like yourself, a musician, you do your own production. You've done your own videos. You have your own studio that you set up. So, the more things that you can get done, it's the less expenses you're going to have. The more skills that you have, the more valuable you're going to be. Like if me as a journalist, if I were to just show up at a place to get a job and I only know how to write. I don't know how to work a camera. I don't know how to do basic video editing or audio. I don't know how to, use a flash drive and upload crazy files. They're not going to hire me. They need people who know how to have a different set of skills. So you just have to be well rounded because anyone can do your job. I always say that, say there's a fire on your block and the news isn't there, but some 10-year-old kid runs outside with his parents' phone or even his phone nowadays and films it and then uploads it to Facebook. And now that video went viral. That 10-year-old kid just broke a story before the news even got there. So
Yeah.
what did you even need the news for to get there? That a little kid just did your job basically. So you just have to be able to move and know how to do different things, and the more skills you have, the better off you're going to be.
Yeah. Yeah, man. And I mean, I think that's just a general rule for life. To be honest, I think there's a lot of opportunity for people that can be flexible and dynamic, and the ability to like gain and like develop different skills as they move through their careers. But yeah, another big thing is for me, like I can basically make music for no cost because I can
Right.
record myself and like produce myself and do all that type of stuff. And um, I've actually brought a couple new producers in to my workflow so I can increase my output. Um, and that kind of hits me a little bit more into the amount of profit I can make just straight from my music. But
Right.
it's definitely a sacrifice that's worth making when I consider the output that I'm able to achieve.
Yeah, because I know, like, production, there's producers and then there's artists, and both of them are doing it full time. And now if you're doing both, it's now you're doing two jobs.
Yeah,
And
yeah, and the thing now is that I'm really convinced that the market just rewards um, high quality, high frequency. But what that means to me is that rather than like releasing a 20 song album at once, it really makes more sense to break that up into a couple smaller projects that are just
right.
really concise with no filler and just consistently just drop good music. You
Yeah.
know, not dropping one thing and then waiting a year or two and then dropping another thing. Like unless you're somebody that's really established, there's a very strong chance that you're just going to be forgotten and irrelevant in that amount of time. Because like spans are so short and things are
Hmm.
continuing to move and develop so quickly. Like even like 3 months on internet time might as well be a year.
Right. You already need a new single or a new project announced because people are
Yeah.
forgetting. So that
And you know, like it's just especially on platforms like Spotify. I mean, they give so much algorithmic promotion for people that have good momentum, and they give you more momentum when you have newer songs out. So if you're dropping something every like 90 days or so, like you're gonna see a good amount of continual just growth as long as the music is connecting with people. The algorithms on the playlists and stuff are just going to recommend you to more and more people. More and more people are going to follow you, and things just kind of tend to expand exponentially at a certain point.
right, and it's going to keep people coming back because there's always something kind of fresh. By the time they outplay that one or two singles, now there's two more that they can listen to. So
Right,
definitely makes
but
sense.
like if you're out here dropping like 20 song Migos like albums, like like most of those people aren't going to give you the time of day, especially like if you don't have a reason. Like the thing that like I always just stress to people the most is just like you got to give people a reason to care. And like for most independent artists, like your average person has zero reason to care about your like hour and 40 minutes of music. Like why would they give you that time when there's so many other more interesting things that they can do with that time? Like how can you expect anybody to give that to you? Like time is the most important thing, you know?
Right, right, right. And so I guess with that being said, what is I guess do you have any artist hacks for up and comers and for indie people? Some way that they can hack the system to help themselves in their favor.
I mean, like that. I mean, this sounds like it sounds like a lame answer because it's not super like specific, but I think it's a perfect answer because the real things in life are different. The specifics are different with every situation. Um, but I mean, I think it's just like finding the way. You need to find who your audience is, and then find out how that audience likes to discover new music, and then give those people a reason to care about your new song or your new project. So, like for me, like I studied like Christian hip hop like a lot, and I found out like
Hmm.
especially at the time that I was starting to really get my feet wet into it. Um, Rapzilla was pretty much the undisputed like discovery outlet and community. So it was pretty obvious to me like that's where I needed to be. Let's make a game plan to one find out how I can tap into this audience. And then after I found out how I could tap into the audience, I did the best that I could to guarantee that I would have the exposure. Then after I was guaranteed I could have the exposure, which for me just straight up started out with having to run some ads on their site.
Hmm.
Because I knew I could get in front of eyeballs by doing that. But just because I knew I could get in front of eyeballs didn't mean that they had any reason to care. So then I had
Right.
another problem I had to fix. So at that time, that meant getting paying for some features for some people that were relevant, that had good following. So even if you don't care about me, there are a substantial amount of their audience that are going to care about those people. So I'm at least going to get a click, and I'm at least going to get a listen. And that's the point where I have to make them care about me but just by delivering a really solid performance. Um, and I was able to kind of use that strategy to get enough of momentum with my own fans to kind of get the ball rolling, and that's always the hardest part. So I think that formula of finding out where the audience is, how to make the audience care, and trying to control as many variables as possible. I think that formula works for everybody, but like that formula is going to be different for everybody too, and some things are just harder because not all genres or niches of music have a Rapzilla type of
Right.
outlet that can provide that for them. Like I was trying to work with some of my friends that do like alternative rock right now, but I'm like, dude, I don't know where people discover new alternative rock at this point. you
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
so like you might have to literally make that audience yourself, and you're gonna have to change the details in that way.
Yeah. I think that's an important thing you said, and not because full disclosure that I work for Rapzilla. So telling people go buy ads, but it's important as an artist that you make an investment in places that are relevant. Like
Right.
I've been in a band for almost 10 years, and I've paid to have our music placed on certain websites, and
Hmm.
I can honestly say I've made a couple of mistakes along the way. You pay $150, $200, you don't really do your research, they post your stuff and nobody sees it because the website maybe gets 100 visitors a month, and they're
Yeah.
just more so looking to make money. But when you see a website like Rapzilla that legitimately has a huge, ravenously hungry fan base who goes crazy on certain things and and whatever, at least whether positive or negative that they are engaged. So that might be worth your investment, not the blog that says, oh, we have cheap ads for $100, but only 50 people see it. So it's
Yeah,
about, and
and
it's
I mean,
trial and
like,
error.
yeah, to that extent, like, you really just have to study whatever community or audience you're going for, and you really just have to be honest with yourself. And I think that a lot of people, what they tend to do, and I've done this in the past too, is that whenever they see an opportunity, like they tend to like romanticize that opportunity to make it better than it is, and you can actually even fool yourself into spending money in foolish ways
Oh yeah.
just because you want. It's like your own confirmation bias. You want something to work. You want to have found a way so bad. Sometimes you just look over things that like don't even make sense, and like you just got to be realistic. And like that's something that in hip hop, like a lot of people I think fall victim to, especially with really big names. Like I mean, I've had double XL post my music and write articles about me before, but they never none of their stuff did as much as what Rapzilla did for me, even though like double XL has however many millions of followers on Twitter.
Right.
you know like it just doesn't mean anything because that wasn't the most focused demographic and audience for what my brand was trying to reach.
Right. It's where people are looking for you, where you know they'll find you, pretty much.
Yeah. So I mean, like if and yeah, I mean, and sometimes the only people for I think that another example of this right now would be like if you're not a Christian rapper and you're just like a if you're going with like the new wave and like the clout stuff, like the Lyrical Lemonade channel on YouTube is like the most like that's the most equitable investment you could possibly do. Like whatever you have to do to get a music video by Cole Bennett, that's your guy. That is your biggest chance. That is your target demographic. You know?
That's such a
But
nice name, Lyrical Lemonade.
yeah,
That's
but
nice.
I mean like he basically blew up Lil Pump, he blew up Lil Skies, he blew up Lil Xan. All these people that are making like huge names for themselves now. But and